Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Design Review Board meeting of March 9th, 2023. The Design Review Board meeting is now called to order. Please silence all cell phones at this time. The Design Review Board meeting is being broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable Channel 6, and on AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's website at www.glendaleca.gov/live, on the youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city's website for viewing anytime at www.glendaleca.gov/agendas. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. The current Design Review Board agendas are also available by visiting our website, again, www.glendaleca.gov. Records of all decisions for projects heard today will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Please note that any appeal of a case heard today must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. Roll call, Board Member Lockeroff.
Present.
Board Member Kasakian.
Kaskanian, yeah. Present.
I apologize. Board Member Chagayan is absent. Board Member Welch.
Present.
And Chair Simonian is also absent. So with that, is there a nomination for Chair Pro Tem for this evening's meeting?
I nominate Board Member Welsh.
I second.
Thank you. And I'm assuming Board Member Welsh is accepting.
It's fine.
So thank you, Chair Pro Tem Welch. Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall on March 6, 2023, and on the city's website on March 2nd, 2023. Next item on today's agenda would be approval of the minutes. These would be the minutes from February 9th, 2023, and all 5 board members were present. Are there any comments regarding the minutes?
I had given you some comments by email. Those have been,
Yes.
okay.
And that has been corrected in terms of the abstention.
Okay.
So, any other comments that were not received? And there was a correction made by, for Board Member Welch's abstention rather than a yes vote. And I believe there's one other comment, but I know that clerical staff took care of that, or admin staff. So with that, is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I move to approve the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Board Member Lockeroff. Thank you, Board Member Kaskanian. I'm going to mispronounce this all the time.
We'll get it.
We will, and I have gotten it in the past. I don't know, mental brain spot. So, and then Board Member Welch, or Chair Pro Tem Welch.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0. Next up would be oral communications. We have no oral communication speaker cards and no callers. Next up would be the board commission and board commission member comments. Any comments from the board that you wish to make? Said. We have no items under old business. We have 2 items under new business. However, one of the items was brought to light just this afternoon that there was an issue with the public notice that was mailed out to all the property owners, and for that reason, this case is being taken off calendar. This would be for the second item under new business on today's agenda. And again, this would be for item B, which is 1214 Allen Avenue, DRB case number 2119659. The project is the demolition of the existing single-family residence built in 1925 and the construction of a new 2-story 2,177 square foot single-family house. The existing detached garage will be partly demolished and reducing its size to 463 square feet and rebuilt to match the primary dwelling. Again, this project located at 1214 Allen Avenue is being continued to March 23rd, and public notices will be sent out to all of the owners and occupants within the 500-foot radius, so it will be renoticed. With that, we have one remaining case on tonight's agenda, and I would like to turn the meeting over to Ms. Pruitt to provide the staff presentation.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Pruitt.
Good evening, Chair Pro Tem, board members, and members of the public. I'm Cassandra Pruitt, the case planner for the project at 1349 Thompson Avenue. And the project is to demolish an existing approximately 1,400 square foot one-story house and replace it with a new approximately 2,300 square foot two-story house.
Second.
I just want to be able to. Sorry about that little technical glitch with the slides. So the subject site is located in West Glendale on the west side of Thompson Avenue between West Kenneth Road and Bel Air Drive. The property features a 7,849 square foot, relatively flat interior lot with alley access at the rear. The project will be required to offer a 125 square foot dedication at the alley, which brings the net lot size down to 7,724 square feet for purposes of development standards calculations. The site is located in the R1-1 zone, which is the low-density residential zone with floor area ratio District 1. The zoning requires a 25-foot front setback, a maximum total floor area of 2,317 square feet for the site, and a 25-foot building height. The existing home is a 1,434 square foot one-story building with a detached garage constructed in 1923 with later modifications. The property does not appear to be eligible for historic designation and is not considered a historic resource under the California Environmental Quality Act. The neighborhood consists primarily of smaller one-story houses, although there are two-story houses on the block, one directly across the street, and one 4 houses down in the direction of Bel Air Drive. This slide shows the other two-story houses on the street, which both feature second stories significantly stepped back from the front facade. Worthy of note is that although the zoning requires a 25-foot front setback, the block seems to have actually a 35-foot prevailing front setback. The proposal under consideration is to demolish the existing house, as I mentioned, and replace it with a prairie-style two-story house featuring 2,305 square feet of floor area and a detached garage accessed through the alley. A new single-family home is also exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act review. In terms of site planning, the proposal includes the primary building at the street front, a pool behind it, a detached garage with access from the alley, and then a detached trellis to the right of that. The proposed building footprint does comply with the minimum setback standards. However, at the right side of the front of the building, it does extend beyond the prevailing setback. A condition of approval is recommended to address this, perhaps by relocating the front facade or pushing back the house and reorienting the pool to accommodate a revised building footprint. The current site plan is also changing from being separated from the property to the north, to the right, by a driveway, which was there before, and instead the building is now being extended the full width of the property. Although that's not the pattern on the street, a detached garage at the rear is consistent with the street pattern. The landscaping plan consists of large areas of lawn and shrubs around the perimeter and could use a wider variety of plant type and placement on the site. A condition of approval, therefore, is recommended to address this. A 6-foot block wall is also proposed around the property, and it is appropriately stepped back from the front facade. I'll now describe the building layout as it relates to massing and scale. The first floor on the left side of this slide features 2 bedrooms and common area, and the second floor on the right side of the slide features 2 bedrooms, including the master bedroom. As you can see, the outline of the first floor exactly mirrors the outline of the second floor, which indicates that the building's not stepping back on the second floor from the first floor in those areas. However, on the lower right-hand side, the building is stepping in. So on the first floor, it's coming all the way out here, and on the second floor, it's stepped back here. And then for this part in the front, there's a slight step back at the balcony area. But because the balcony has railing or wall there, it still indicates massing in that area. Here in the elevations, you can see the lack of stepping on the second story and the resulting boxy massiness of the building. The FAR and height are also being maximized with this project, and while those aren't issues in themselves, the design doesn't temper them, so the building still comes across as tall and massive. A condition of approval is recommended to push back portions of the second floor at the front and sides of the west side of the building to relieve the sense of mass and enhance compatibility with nearby properties. Another aspect that adds to the building massing is the tall floor-to-ceiling height, which ranges from 9 feet 4 to 11 feet 3. Reducing floor-to-ceiling heights is another possible approach to reducing the building size and massing. These renderings help show how the right front side of the building features stepping, whereas the other parts do not. So over here, you can see the stepping back of the second floor from the first and from this view, whereas this side of the building doesn't feature stepping and this side doesn't feature stepping. The design and detailing do feature a consistent architectural concept mimicking the prairie style, with an appropriate variation in material and solid void relationships and an appropriate focal point for the entryway. Materials include stucco, stone, aluminum cladding, glass railing, a wood door, aluminum windows, and asphalt shingle roofing. Overall, the window placement is appropriate. The lack of openings, however, at the east facade leads to some walls appearing monolithic. Sorry, that's this side here. A condition of approval is recommended to include additional windows at that facade to help break up the mass. In addition, the wide slider window at the front left on the front facade on the bottom level, it's not in keeping with the other windows, which you can see have layout in 3 parts. A condition of approval is recommended to break that window into a 3-part casement or casements in separate openings to achieve greater consistency with the other windows. The sliding glass door on the second level also appears too tall, so a condition of approval is recommended to reduce the size to be more proportional to the other openings of the facade. The material information also calls out foam trim around the windows, so a condition of approval is recommended to require the trim to be precast molding and not field-finished molding. Also, no exterior lighting plan has been shown other than the one light on the garage, so a condition of approval is recommended to provide a lighting plan for review if any exterior lighting is proposed. And finally, the block wall around the house could be designed to better reflect the character of the house, perhaps by employing stacked bond or applying appropriate cladding. As a note, one public comment was received in opposition to the project and was shared with the board members prior to the hearing. The letter is from the neighbor adjacent to the project site and expresses concerns about her view being blocked and dust during construction. If the proposed project is revised to push the building back to align with the front facade or the prevailing setback on the street and reduce the massing, this may help reduce obstruction of views. In terms of dust during construction, all projects are required to comply with the Air Quality Management District Rule 403, that deals with fugitive dust during construction. So based on the information just presented, the staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. The 8 conditions indicated on this slide and which were outlined in the staff report. And in addition, these 2 other conditions, which I just discussed in the presentation, they were discussed in the staff report, but they didn't make it into the final list of conditions on the staff report. So that was an oversight. So those are the 10 recommended conditions by staff. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Ms. Pruitt. Any questions for anybody? No?
I have one simple question. The existing home, do you happen to know the height? It's a 1-story house, but it's quite tall because of the roof profile, and I was just curious what the existing height is.
I do not have that height, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. So we will open up the public hearing. I have only 1 speaker card. Is there going to be any more speaker cards? No? Okay. Arsen Ajmanian, I think I hopefully got that right. Come up, speak your name for the record, and then go ahead. You'll have up to 10 minutes, I think, if you need it.
My name is Arsen Ajemian. I represent the client. I'm the leader of the team that worked on the design. First, I'd like to thank you for having us here today. That's the only meeting. And I'm here primarily to answer any questions that you might have. And we have few comments regarding the staff report and provide maybe possible answers. I know you had a particular order in staff report. These are in no order. Already we reviewed the staff report and we went over it with our clients, and we're willing to make some compromises to work with the board and the zoning department. We're willing to reduce the height of those sliders in the front to 8 feet and same in the back for master's bedroom. And we also have no problem breaking up the slider window in the front into 2 casements. Regarding the lighting, we will provide a comprehensive lighting plan showing all exterior lighting. What we briefly discussed, we will go with lantern style lights on the front and the rear, as well as some eave lights. And we try to avoid the lights on the side of the building to avoid disturbing the neighbors. So primarily front and back, and we will include it in the final plans. We also have no problem making the block wall with cladding to match the style of the house. This will also be included. Regarding the landscape plan, I believe the staff report calls it overly simplified, but I would like to point out that we will greatly improve the current landscaping that the existing building has. And we also went over some of the other homes on the street, and I have some images if the board members are interested. So based on something like this, I think our proposed landscaping would fall right into the thing and maybe probably even enhance the neighborhood appearance, right? As a summary, we're providing several large trees on the property and over 150 different bushes throughout the lot. And I think most importantly, the massing and scale, right? While we are at the higher range of the allowable for area and height, I'd like to say that our building is about 2,300 square feet, but there are other buildings on the street within 300 feet that are over 2,600 square feet, and same goes with floor to area ratio. We're at 30%. There are buildings that are 32%, I believe. And same goes with the front yard. Right? As much as we try to offset the building back at the front to minimize the massing, there are buildings that have smaller setback. We're currently showing 25. There are buildings that have 20. I believe it's on the other side of the street, though. And pushing the building back also becomes more difficult considering we gave up 2.5 feet at the rear, so everything had to shrink. And to have a usable backyard with the pool, it's hard to bring the building even further back since it would reduce the usable area of the backyard. And believe regarding the height of the existing building, while I don't have the number, I have an image of the temporary frame plan in relation to the existing building. And in the front, we are at the same height, even probably a bit less, a foot less, if you would like to see. So in the front, we're not increasing the height of the existing building as shown. And this is it. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I noticed that on the cover page in the packet that we received, the image did show 2 casement windows on the left side versus in the plan.
Yeah.
So is that what your intention was when you mentioned 2 casements there?
Correct, pretty
Okay.
much. Yeah. I know we were going back and forth on the design and we just didn't update the corner rendering. But we will go to that exact same layout to match the other windows. We couldn't put 3 windows because of the egress requirements. They would be too small. So they would match exactly windows on the right side of the house.
Mhm. And Ms. Pruitt described the design as a prairie style. Is that how you also would characterize the style of the house?
Yes.
Okay. And are you open to well, I mean, we have the ability to impose conditions, but in case that there are others, so you might need to address some of those in terms of dealing with staff. So,
No, of course, we're willing to work on it.
okay. Questions?
Could you repeat that final statement? We were a little lost over here. It sounded like I heard the word staff.
Oh, what did I say? Oh, I'm not sure either, but I think it was work
We'll
with
watch the
staff
tape.
on the conditions.
Okay.
Okay.
But we do want to have the window at the front look like whatever's on the rendering. The two casements.
Well, we're not in deliberations at this point in time yet, so,
Right, but that,
okay.
I do have a question. You mentioned that the wall you were okay with putting cladding, for instance. What were you talking about, the stone cladding that's at the front, or were you talking about adding something else? What specifically were you thinking for that?
Again, we only had a few days to discuss this, but
Right.
it probably would be the some of the stone cladding that we're already using on the house to make a match.
Okay. And then just regarding the La Habra selections, what grain or sand were you planning for that? Was it to be smooth stucco? It doesn't indicate here. I just wanted,
Most likely, yes, with stucco.
I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Have you considered other things that you could potentially do with the design to help minimize? I mean, Ms. Pruitt commented about the height and the appearance of height and massiveness. And, prairie style is very, horizontally focused, I understand that's hard to accomplish in a location like this, but have you thought about or considered other ways to try and bring that about from a design perspective?
So a couple things we went over with. First, we had the garage attached in the front. So this way we didn't need to have the 20-foot driveway in the rear. So the whole thing could be pushed back. So we kind of combined the front yard and the driveway. So the whole building could be pushed back. But it is not consistent with the neighborhood style, even though not everybody, a lot of homes have driveway access from the front, including this house, the existing, right? It's just the garage needs to be at the back detached. Another thing we were going back and forth with is to have the railing at the front balcony and the top left to be glass, to minimize the appearance, the massing.
Okay, any other questions? Any follow-up?
My other question, also regarding breaking down the massing, is would you consider, for instance, using materials to help break that up, for instance?
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's what we were trying to
Yeah.
accomplish, to have different, as you can see on the side elevations, we try to minimize this. And
At
we
the-
will,
At the side as well, though, I was thinking, prairie style houses often will have a dark upper portion, and that can help to minimize things as well. I don't know if you'd be
Yeah, this is something we definitely
Okay.
would be willing to look into that. And I believe I didn't mention, we will be willing to provide windows on the, which one was it? The one that appeared monolithic.
The east side.
Yeah. I think we would, we actually have the elevations here, but we would provide them on the first floor and the stairway, but we would try to avoid providing them in the top to avoid looking down into somebody's backyard or possibly neighbor's windows.
What about in the living room area? Or
Yeah,
the
living room,
bathroom?
yeah, living room.
Even
would-
the living room too? Okay.
Yeah,
But
I
if you
have,
could do clear story windows there, you know, so they can be more upper level.
yeah,
which
we
would
were
be
going
consistent
for
with the
like
design language.
vertical windows, like 2 vertical windows on the sides of the, where you would have a TV area. We
Mhm.
would have 2 vertical windows on the side, like consistent with the other vertical windows in the front.
Mhm. But you don't think there's enough space to do clear story windows? Oh,
Just like a long horizontal
Mhm.
window. I think it
Or
is
at least
possible.
matching ones like you have in the front. You have the tripart windows with the matching clear story windows above them.
This is something we can certainly look at. My concern was when you end up having a lot of side windows, especially like long one, you run into engineering issues because you're ultimately cutting down the shear walls.
Mhm. Well, I wasn't suggesting long ones. I was just suggesting
Yeah.
potentially small clear story windows. that
Yeah,
would-
this is something
you know.
that could be. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any callers on the matter?
We have no callers.
No callers? So, okay, I guess we can close the public hearing then, unless there's anybody else who wants to speak. Last chance. No? Okay. All right, we will close the public hearing, and we will move to board member deliberations. Board Member Blackcliff, would you like to lead us off?
Sure. So first, thank you to both the designer and to staff. I think everything's very clear, and I think I agree very much so with staff's report and the conditions that were laid out. Where I'm on the fence is whether or not we could approve with conditions versus coming back, and I'd like to have a dialogue with my colleagues here. Just because I do feel that as it is, it feels massive. In particular, I went by the site, and the home to the left, if you're facing the front, is quite small, and then the one to the right is larger. But I think the story poles kind of dwarfed the house to the left, and I would love to see more variation in height to that side. I mean, it could be resolved by flipping the floor plan completely, but that would be a larger undertaking. But or as staff recommended, stepping back from the front a little bit more. And I definitely think that should be a condition. Also, I think that materials if you go to, you're on the elevation that I was, actually, if you could go to A3. I was going to say in particular that west elevation is pretty blocky, and I agree with staff that needs to be broken up. And as I mentioned, with prairie styles, materials can really help to break up. It might not even need to be stepped back too significantly from that side, but a little bit of relief and a change in material at the top. Perhaps wood or something at the upper portion could help, or even color. I'd say the one condition that wasn't as needed for me was the landscaping element. I really love the diamondia grass that you're using throughout, yeah, I thought more trees would be good all the time, but that wasn't as large of a concern for me. I think that's it for now. I'm on the fence. It really does need, the massing is out of scale for the neighborhood at this point. So I'd love to talk on how we could achieve meeting the design guidelines better there. Thank you.
Board Member Cascadian?
Yep. I do agree with fellow board member. The scaling of the house does look a little bit more like a massive scale, and the other houses around the area, if you look at it like our college staff was saying, it's a little bit set back, whereas this one's just like all in the front. And I think the mass of the house doesn't really match the neighborhood. The design of the houses, I really like it. I think we are going towards the right direction, but I do think that there are some tweaks that need to be made, especially in that area. So I do agree with staff's report here, but I also would like to hear from you all what you guys think as well.
Okay, thank you. For my comments, I want to say, first of all, I think that generally speaking, the size of the house is appropriate. It's not, overly sized. Massing is a different issue, but I'll come to that. The fact that you put the garage in the back, I applaud that decision. I agree with that decision. I think any place where there's alley access, use it, because I think that it really helps the ability to create a better design for the house. You're not restricted narrow-wise, and you're not dedicating a huge amount of hardscape for cars and car parking. So I agree with that, and it gives you the opportunity to fully stretch the house across the width of it. It creates greater opportunities to put those public common areas accessible to the back, as you have done. So I think that is well done as well. I think that the issue really for me is just dealing with the alignment of the house with the rest of the neighborhood, because that is part of our job, is making sure that new designs, especially where you're proposing a second story in a predominantly one-story neighborhood, that we work to make sure that it is blend well, that is integrated into the neighborhood. None of us here, I think, are opposed to doing two-story homes in predominantly single-story neighborhoods. It's just that they have to be done with a little bit more sensitivity. And so that's what we're going to try to work through tonight. For me, the biggest issues with the massing here is that left side. It's the way that those stone columns just rise up. It creates a really sense of verticality and monumentality there, which is not in keeping with a prairie-style design. Even just the use of these vertical fins on the upper story small windows there, it's not consistent with the prairie style, in my opinion, and it also lends to that sense of verticality. So I think that we could do some things with some of those elements. And what I was thinking myself, and again, I'm going to play the role of Board Member Simone tonight, redesigning stuff here in real time, but I don't like that balcony and those stone pillars that rise up there on the front. I think that it's part of what leads to that sense of monumentality. I think that's the story poles also, when I visited the site, they did seem very, very prominent compared to that next door house. And to have a second story massing that goes beyond the standard setback for every other house creates furtherance of that sense of mass. So what I was thinking is, if you could get rid of that balcony, have the roof form, the hip roof form, go across there, okay? You could still have a balcony. You could nest a balcony behind the sort of the hip roof form there. And if you got rid of that little bump out where you have a two-story thing above the foyer there, so where the foyer goes up 2 stories, if you eliminated that, you could have a very nice, useful little balcony there with greater privacy for the balcony and hidden away behind the roof form. That way you'd have the roof form that would continue across the whole thing. It would reinforce a sense of horizontality to the design as opposed to verticality. And I would also, obviously if we eliminate the balcony, we'd eliminate those big sliders, which are ginormous. They're way out of scale. So you could replace them also with a set of 2 casement windows and have a glass window on the side opening onto that balcony there. So that was one of the things that I was thinking in terms of a solution to resolve that. The applicant suggested glass for a balcony, but I was going to raise the issue that the glass on the back is just also not in keeping with the prairie style. So I would recommend it be redesigned to be more in keeping with that sort of style. I think the way that you've got those clear story windows that you've got on the front there, I think if we could reduce the height of that a little bit, you could basically remove that gap that exists between the clear story and the casement windows and bring them close together, because I think that's more consistent with a prairie style, because when you see a separation for clear story windows like that, it's usually on the second floor, not on the first floor. So you'd have to bring them tighter to be more consistent. So those are my views. Generally speaking, with all the rest of staff's comments, I largely also agreed with Ms. Pruitt's recommendations there. So those are sort of my thoughts on this. So I'll ask you to opine as an architect.
Yes, and I would like to say, I don't think I mentioned it the first time, but I do think the design is good. And it's good, I mean, in general, the massing is large, but I do think there are a lot of good, there's a good sense of balance going on. So I'm encouraged by that, and I know that you're gonna have a nice design in the end. I just, I agree. I think that's a great idea to continue the roof over on the first floor. I think that'll help increase the appearance of horizontality. And the one thing I had mentioned earlier too, in conjunction with that, was the potential of flipping the floor plan, reversing. And part of why I was feeling that way when I visited the site was that it doesn't show it here, but it does slightly go uphill. And the lower roof is on the upslope, whereas typically it's the reverse. And I do think that putting that lower roof next to the smaller house and then the bigger wall next to the larger house might help in terms of, making them. And I think that area is the most visible too. So it might be nicer to see that corner of the house. So that was one, and maybe it's a consideration and as a way to
basically do a mirror.
A mirror, correct? Yeah, of the house. I think the floor plans could just flip it, and then. But I like your idea of continuing the roof across. I would love to see that be a condition, and perhaps just different materials to try to break up that first.
I think the black and white color scheme is a little harsh too. It looks brown in this image that we're looking at here, but I think that the colors were more charcoal, black, white, kind of look. And again, I think that you had mentioned wood in the banding, so that could be good, or even just a more earth toned color. I think in some of those places would be more appropriate.
It would help to bring your eye down lower if the bottom is white and the top is dark. Just standard kind of prairie style design. So I think I agree, and I'm leaning towards having it come back, just because I think the conditions we're talking about are kind of big to see, how. But I would love to hear what you both think in terms of whether or not it's conditions we set forth versus return. Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, I think I would agree with the redesign, coming back for a redesign.
Okay. So, Mr. Platt, it seems like the consensus is for return for redesign with the conditions. Do you have enough guidance to work with the applicants?
Yeah, I think I have a couple of questions. I'll just read back what I have just to make sure, because we use these very specifically to help the applicant implement what you're looking for. One clarification, Commissioner, Board Member Lockeroff said she was okay with the landscaping plan as proposed, and I don't think we heard from anyone else. Just in thinking about the staff conditions.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I guess I was okay with it.
Okay, so we'll eliminate condition 7. Okay, so in no order of importance, but this first one's pretty big. I think there was agreement to flip the floor plan. which will lead to the one-story volume being at a lower elevation, and then we're also, as a second condition, we're going to be lowering the height of that one-story portion, which will involve not just compressing the windows, but also bringing the whole roof form down, I believe. So we'll do both of those things. Specifically at the west elevation, but I think we'll look at this consistently to figure out ways to use the materials to break up the mass, possibly incorporating wood or synthetic wood trim bands or something like that, possibly also working with different colors to kind of help horizontalize the design, make it more prairie style. We didn't hear, I don't think specifically, there was, Commissioner Board Member Welsh mentioned alignment, but I think that was kind of big picture alignment. Did you, in terms of the prevailing setback, was there any concern that this might be a little forward from that?
The second story portion, yes, in particular. So if the second story portion could be brought back into alignment, I'm okay with first story proportions being, a little bit closer to the street than the prevailing setback, but certainly if we're going to be
That's what
having
it
a
was,
second
right?
story, it should be at least at that.
Both, okay. Okay,
Okay.
so we'll modify the condition about the prevailing
agree?
setback to focus on the second floor, making sure that's definitely, well, we're actually gonna, possibly, the second floor is gonna be pushed back even more than that.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
it may be necessary to push it back even more than
Okay.
that, but yes.
I was just going to say, to clarify, you're saying that the first floor is encroaching on the prevailing setback by how much?
We have one of the drawings showed that. One of the earlier ones.
I think it was as much as 10 feet,
Oh, wow.
where that
The
bedroom.
red horizontal line. There. Yeah, so the second floor
I
is
see.
sneaking over a little bit on the left, and then the first floor is over by what looks like about 5 feet or so.
Okay.
Thought it was a little more than that, but yeah, okay. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, I would love to see it, the whole thing shift back to maybe not entirely, but
Yeah,
a little
I-
bit. It's,
Maybe a
yeah.
little bit, but,
Mhm.
again, as long as it's a one-story element that's encroaching past the predominant, because they're still within the legal
Right,
limits,
right. Rather than the
Um,
two-story.
So,
yeah.
but the two-story one, I'd want to make sure that we kept that one
Right.
to the prevailing.
Okay.
Okay.
So does that, forgive me, Jay, just for clarification on condition number 1 for the staff report, it says relocate the front facade or push the building back to align with the prevailing setback of the street.
Yeah, we're gonna
So
modify that
That's being modified just for that second story
to
portion.
ensure that the second story is behind, but I do think some of the other conditions are gonna lead to the because the second story. I
It needs
think
to go
everyone thought was
further.
fine on the right side of the building, the
Right.
way it
Yes.
relates to the first level. The second floor, I think we do wanna see either reduced or pushed back. I can picture some ways. This is one of the few houses that we've seen in years that doesn't have a covered rear patio.
That's what I was
So
thinking
I'm
as well.
wondering if maybe
Yeah.
on the right side of the pool, there could be, especially if when it's flipped.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll work with the architect on that, and I'll put a note, covered rear patio, question mark.
Yes, and I liked it was a suggestion by the planner or by staff to rotate the pool. I thought that was a smart idea, that you can gain some space there.
Right. Should we make that a condition? I don't know.
I think a suggestion is fine. I think it's a good idea, but
Okay, we'll use that as one of the options as they're putting the puzzle together.
Yeah, personally, if it was me, I would keep the alignment of the pool as it is to maximize the amount of that landscaping there.
All right, continuing on, we talked about breaking up the mass, especially looking at the top of the facade. Flipping the plan was mentioned again. Alignment, biggest issue, the left side. And this is something I need to clarify in terms of, could we go back to the elevation, the colored elevation? When we're extending the roof cross over the entry area at the second floor. Could you go to the more rendered, the big, it's toward the end, I think?
So you'd like, 1 second.
It's just the front elevation,
So it would be,
without all the extraneous lines. That one that you have in front of you. Yeah. So I'm assuming that means that the eave that we see on the left that's now skimming over the balcony would continue to at least over the front door area, maybe not quite as far as the...
No, I mean, I did a little mock-up, actually.
I think
had
all the
done
way
it
across.
All the way across.
Yeah.
All the way across, to where that ends, I
Yes,
see. Okay.
yes, to eliminate the balcony at the front there
Right.
and top that portion. Is this what
I-
you
But
envisioned?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You did mention having and then would the balcony be over the front entry area then?
The balcony would then be behind the angle of the roof in that, exactly, in that little area where the arrow is going, sort of behind the edge of the roof, the little parapet there.
If I'm picturing that, that would be a pretty extreme cantilever and a lot of soffit under the eave kind of floating over a balcony.
Well, I wasn't suggesting that the front edge of the roof line continue all the way across.
Uh-huh.
It would be stepped back to be in line with that portion.
Okay, so it'd still be a two-part roof.
Yes, yes. So you'd have the front hip here on the front, and then it'd be an angled back
Kind of
at the
L-
reset.
Kind of a reverse of what's going on the second story.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and if we could keep that little sketch.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. You really are playing the role of Mr. Simonian tonight. I have a couple more, I think. Okay, so the balcony is going to disappear, and I believe you said to put windows where the sliding glass doors are. Does that mean we would also have a small hipped roof over the lower area? So there would be where the balcony is now, if the first floor and the second floor are stepping back, and we're not going to have the balcony at the front, there would now be a roof in that area?
Correct.
Okay.
And the way, I mean, I would love to see what the designer comes up with, without being too prescriptive about how they do that roof. I mean, it could just be one, I think the more horizontal, the better on that side. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just have a general condition to emphasize horizontality
Yep.
everywhere consistently,
Yeah, and
especially at the front.
right, and where you've got on the right-hand side, looking at this image that's up on the screen here, on the right-hand side, you have those stone veneered column near elements at the edges, but they stop just right near the top of the window forms. I would do the same thing on the left side as well. So you create a banding there between the top of those windows and the stone columns and the roof form. I don't know whether you can squeeze in clear story windows there. Also, I think that the height on the right side was higher because it didn't have the second story, so it was able to go up an extra foot. But nevertheless, the banding element, I think, is appropriate to the prairie style design language.
Okay. Balcony in front. Any railings that are left after all this, including at the rear, will be prairie in keeping with the prairie style. Again, focusing on horizontality, certainly no glass railings.
Right.
And I mentioned before, reducing the height of the living room window and pushing the windows, the clear stories down correspondingly. The color scheme was mentioned to move toward more of an earth tone scheme away from the black and white.
When you said living room, are you talking about the room in the front?
Yeah.
That's actually a bedroom.
Okay, that's a bedroom. Looks like a living room.
I know it does, but it's actually a bedroom.
I mean, yeah, sorry about that. We mentioned using a different material for the banding, whether it's wood or synthetic wood or something to give material and textural variety. The stone columns you just mentioned to kind of mimic the quality we see at the right at however the left side is revised, if it's appropriate. Rotate the pool, we'll just keep in our back pocket as a possible way to solve some of these problems. Also possibly the covered patio at the rear. I think that's everything that I jotted down, unless you've You guys have anything else?
I'm sorry if, I don't know if it was mentioned, went in our discussions, but that wall, getting a cladding, I think I agree with
block
that.
wall,
The
the
block
perimeter
wall.
wall?
Yeah, I agree with that condition.
To use the stone cladding?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
And then I think in terms of the staff conditions, we're going to revise several, and several we'll just keep that you haven't addressed directly. So.
Right. I was going to mention in terms of the black and white scheme, I don't mind the bottom being white so much as the upper portion I felt needed to be either a cream or a darker color. I don't know how you guys feel about that. It was just more of a matter of defining the upper and lower portions.
Talking about within a single story? With
Correct.
Having
The second floor.
lighter, well, so you're talking about having a different color on the first floor versus the second floor for the lighter colored sections?
Correct, yeah, or the upper floor just being darker in some way, yeah,
The whole of it, you mean?
correct, yeah.
Although if we're looking at that horizontal band that you had mentioned and thinking about a possible material there, could that be something that we introduce also at the first floor to kind of link the two, have a lighter colored wall with a darker band under the eave? Or, I think that's where, Danielle, you were going before?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, it could be material or color.
Yeah, material
yeah,
or color,
yeah.
you know,
Okay. But the trim should be a different material. We don't want the trim to be stucco. So
Okay, correct.
horizontal and vertical trim pieces.
Correct.
Okay. That's everything we've got.
So I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to resubmit for redesign with the conditions just discussed. Do I need to reiterate the conditions, or I think we just went through them pretty thoroughly?
Yeah.
So we're good. Okay. Okay. So, yeah. So,
Second?
great.
All right, Board Member Lockerov,
Yes.
Board Member Kaskanian,
Yes.
and Chair Pro Tem Welch.
Yes.
Thank you, and I will get this right and not call you the mayor at the next meeting. So, we have no other items on tonight's agenda. Again, that last remaining case at 1214 Allen Avenue is being continued and will be renoticed for March 23rd. Staff does not have any other announcements. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Very
All
good.
in favor?
We are adjourned, yes.
Thank you
Yes,
very
thank
much.
you.
Thank you.